Hi guys, welcome to the J&J Boxing Podcast. I'm here with Jordan Henderson and I'm Joshua. We're gonna talk about the fight that's just been announced, the big card in Saudi at the end of the year. Interesting fights on it, to be honest with you. Fights I didn't think will get made, but at the same time, it shows when money's involved, promoters will get involved. So what's your thoughts on the card?
Yeah, I mean, let me just say to see Frank Warren and Eddie Hearn just kind of there together was a bit mad. Seeing promoters, they always do that funny look when fighters are staring each other down. So you get
Yeah,
the Eddie Hearn edition and the Frank Warren edition. It's kind of like you stir a type of look.
yeah, literally, literally,
So you got two of
literally.
them doing that. That was pretty funny. It was kind of funny. It was interesting to see Wilder and Joshua in the same room as well.
Yeah,
Um,
interesting in that as well.
and Jarrell Miller, I kind of have to give him the award for like making it most entertaining. I'm not gonna lie. I was wondering because as they're all walking in, I was thinking who's gonna say what, and I thought Jarrell Miller's not gonna keep his mouth shut. He's just not.
Yeah, 100%,
Um,
100%. He's a loudmouth. Also,
so
some interesting facts, and I think firstly, going through the fights, out of the fights, what are you saying interests you the most?
do you know what? It's a very stat card. I'm not gonna lie, one that sticks out to me is Daniel Dubois versus Jarrell Miller. And the reason being is because I can see that fight going one or two ways. I can see that being Dubois very early with his accurate, orthodox but conventional but effective, straight punches. Solid jab, 1-2 down the pipe. He throws his punches correctly. He's not the fastest, but he throws his punches correctly. Jarrell Miller's there to be hit. But if Jarrell Miller has a chin to take those punches and he can lean on Dubois and wear him out, then I can see that being a very, very hard night's work for Dubois. So that interests me. I can see that going one or two ways. I can see Dubois knocking him out early, and I can see Jarrell Miller drowning him late. Um,
Yeah, I share your thoughts with that, to be honest with you. But the only thing I need to see what Miller comes out. If the Miller of 2018 fights, I think he beats the bar and I think he stops him late. But Miller, I know he's always been big, but in this press conference, he looked like he was carrying a bit of fat. I'm not gonna lie to you. So I need to see what shape Miller comes in. With Dubois, I actually think he looked very confident in this press conference, to be honest with you. I actually think he believes that he's a level above Jerome Miller. So I'll be interested to see that. The height difference as well. I thought they were the same height, but I'm not sure footwear. But the Dubois did look to be a bit taller than him, so that would be interesting to see. So I think in terms of the whole card, I would say that is probably the closest 50-50 matchup on the whole card, to be honest with you.
yeah, I share that sentiment with you that there was something you just said that my brain's just trying to catch up on. But oh, that was it. The height as well. I think the Daniel Dubois. If you were to, I put my money on Dubois being a bit taller.
Yeah,
Jarrell Miller. I feel that he did look big. And I also think that since his comeback, he has looked a bit flatter. So I do
yeah.
think that he has lost the touch with the drugs or whatever he was doing. I think that he's definitely lost a step, which is to be expected. Um, I think that Daniel Dubois, this is an interesting thought, and I want to know what you think about this. And it's something Eddie Hearn apparently touched on that I didn't hear, but Hatman pointed it out. He said Eddie Hearn alluded to Gervonta Davis not being that intelligent. Now, I'm not saying he's not that intelligent, but I'm saying that's what he said. And therefore, it actually helps him because he doesn't overthink it or doesn't think too much. Now, Daniel Dubois, I'm not calling him stupid. I'm just saying perhaps he's not the most intelligent. That's how I'm going to say it. And, someone being screaming and shouting and being in your face can come across as, intimidating to some. And then with Alexander Usyk, he just got knocked out in that fight. But when someone's not intelligent, I don't know, sometimes maybe a more intelligent person that weighs on the mind, but someone who's not intelligent, they might just almost forget about it. Because when he was in that press conference, you wouldn't have thought he just got knocked out in his last fight. You wouldn't have thought that he had someone loud screaming in his face. He was just the same old Daniel Dubois.
Yeah,
It's like
with
no matter.
Dubois. Yeah, sorry to interrupt, but with
Go on.
Dubois, I do think the lack of boxing I not boxing IQ, but the lack of common sense, not to be rude, I think it does help him. I think with Dubois, he's a type of guy that'll go into a fight and try to take you out in 3 rounds. And most of the time he has been successful, to be honest with you. So I do share your view that I can see this fight going very early for Dubois, or if Dubois can't take Miller out, Dubois tends to gas. I know he's lost a lot of muscle mass, but still he hasn't got the best gas tank. And I can see Miller breaking him down. But I do agree with your view that ever since Miller's come back from wherever he was taking, he has looked flat. Against Bracamonte, he didn't look the best. Against Lucas Brown, I know he beat Lucas Brown, but still, like, he didn't look the best in that fight. So I do think this is the boss fight to lose. I expect him to win, and I think he wins. I think he wins early, you know. I'm not gonna lie to you. I think he actually wins early.
I can see it. I can honestly see that happening. I think Jarrell Miller, I'll be fully real with you. Don't remember how I scored the Bracamonte fight, but I did score it. And I think I might have scored it around to Miller. Like people were missing out on that. Even Dillian White said something, I think, like, no, Dillian White was commenting on Chris Arreola and Andy Ruiz. But I basically thought that fight of Bracamonte was close,
Mm.
close. And he got buzzed in that fight as well. And then I think he got buzzed a little bit by Lucas Brown as well.
Yeah, he did. I've
So
not watched the Bracamonte fight to be honest with you, but I did see the highlights of the Lucas Brown fight. Lucas Brown can punch. I'm not gonna lie to you. He's a big puncher. I know he's long in the tooth now, but the last thing to leave is power. But regardless, I do think this is a very smart matchup from Dubois. Just because Jerome Miller's undefeated, people know him from the AJ debacle back in the day. Yeah, so I do think it's a good match to get his confidence back and get a highlight reel knockout.
yeah, we'll see, man. I don't know. Jarrell Miller's so big. I don't even think he could support himself falling on the floor, man. He just might
But
just stand
honestly.
there like frozen.
Honestly, the way David Price got, every time David Price got hit, he didn't even fall. He just like bent over a couple of times because he was so big and tall. So I do see something like that.
Yeah, where he's just standing there like
Yeah,
knocked out on his feet because he's like 300 and whatever pounds. So, but honestly, yeah, I think that's Dubois late, Dubois early or Jarrell
or
Miller
Miller
late.
late.
But that Jarrell Miller late, and to be honest with you, Jarrell Miller surviving the early onslaught is all dependent on how much Jarrell Miller has minus the PEDs, in my
Yeah,
opinion.
yeah, exactly that. Exactly. I
Um,
agree with you on that.
so moving on with the card, we got a razor close 50-50 Sock'em fight with Hergovic and Mark Demori. No, I'm kidding. But
Oh, wow.
but the way they were saying it, the hard hitting Mark Demori, I was like, yeah, he might hit hard, but that's probably about it. But the thing
He's
is, I
got a good
feel
record,
like
to be fair.
I just feel like Jarrell Miller, no, not Jarrell Miller, Hergovic. I think the reason that fight's being made is because Hergovic has worked his way into a position, and I think they didn't want to risk that position, so they just put him in with a name that's known. 1 or 2 rounds, Philip Hergovic. It may go longer than David Haye because Hergovic fights at range.
Yeah.
But I think that's pretty much all that can be said on that. What are your thoughts on there's so many fights, my
There
brain
was
is just kind of
Makhmudov
fuzzy.
versus Kabayel. There was
What are your
Opataya
thoughts on that?
versus. Okay, we'll talk about Makhmudov versus Kabayel. I researched Kabayel last night and I didn't know that he had a fight that he got dropped. Then he dropped the guy the next round. It was against someone.
Recent. It was
Yeah,
recent.
relatively recently. I obviously remember Kabayel beating Derek Chisora, so I didn't think I thought he was just there working in Germany. I watched the fight yesterday. He got buzzed by Kevin Johnson as well. Kevin Johnson. So
Yeah.
I've seen red flags from Kabayel. So I think he's got a padded record. I think he's got a good win, but I do think this is a fight tailor-made for Makhmudov. Makhmudov is stiff, but he can punch. So I do think this is a tailor-made fight. I'm not sure if he represents Russia or Canada. I'm not really sure if the European will be on the line, but if it is on the line, I think this is a very respectable fight for Makhmudov. I think you do need to step up after this, but on short notice, this is only 6 weeks short notice. I think that's a good opponent, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I think that us from what I know, I think I've actually spoke to Mamadov a couple of times. He commented on my old one, even my old and my new YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Is that Yeah, he's pretty cool. But I think Makhmudov, he is born Russian, fine out of Canada. So
Okay.
I would have thought that would mean that the European title, he is eligible to fight for it. Whether it's sanctioned in Saudi Arabia, I don't know. But I think that with regards to that fight, if it is sanctioned and it's allowed to go ahead, I do think that that's a good move for Makhmudov. I think that Kabayel actually could make Makhmudov miss a little bit and make him look a bit silly for a few rounds.
Yeah.
I do think that I can imagine a situation where Makhmudov, he's connecting, but Agit Kabayel's taking the sting out of it, maybe on his back foot, maybe even hitting Makhmudov a little bit enough. And I think that because I actually watched Agit Kabayel, one of his earlier fights. I've known about him for a while before he fought Chisora, and he used to come forward. He used to put the
Yeah.
high guard up and come forward. So I reckon if he can, I reckon he could land a little bit on Makhmudov, but I believe at some point that Makhmudov is going to corner him or catch him with something and unload. And, he got hurt in that fight you're talking about. I can't remember when that fight was exactly. And I watched the Kevin Johnson fight, and I'm telling you, man, Kevin Johnson looked like he was in journeyman mode, but it looked like every now and then he just decided to wake up and just pull it on Ajit Kabayel and actually do some damage. So if Kevin Johnson at age 40 is going to be doing that to you, you'd think that Makhmudov is going to take him out at some point in the
Yeah.
fight. So I think mid to mid late rounds, anywhere maybe from 4 to 9, I would pick
Yeah.
Makhmudov to get it done.
I agree with that.
Um, the other fight, you've got Frank Sanchez versus
Versus
Junior
Junior
Fa. What are your
Four.
thoughts?
Junior Four has a very padded record. I've never really rated him. I do think though Sanchez is not the best puncher. Um, we've seen him get hurt in his last fight. So with Sanchez, you know what it is? You can't really be calling yourself the best heavyweight when you're fighting the likes of Junior Fire. You do need to step it up. Even on a short notice thing, I do expect you to be fighting someone a bit better than Junior Far. So I think name value, it's a good fight. Everyone rates Far not relatively high, but you know what I mean. Junior Far has got a bit of clap behind him. But in reality, I don't really rate this fight. I think Sanchez probably wins on points, to be honest with you. Relatively boring fight, 10 round or 12 round decision points.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on how damaged Farr is from that beat down from Brown. And
Yeah.
if you actually go back, he fought Dominic Gwynn and got dropped in that fight. Um,
Oh, I didn't even know that. So
yeah.
yeah, it's a bit vulnerable actually. Okay.
So Dominic Gwynn apparently just let him off the hook because he's journeyman mode and just trying to
Yeah.
get paid. And I think Dominic Gwynn was maybe 40 at the time. So yeah, Junior Farr, I think he's got the punch resistance issues. I don't think he's a puncher. So I think that Frank Sanchez, I still think it will go longer than it should. And let's not rule out Junior Farr buzzing Frank Sanchez because look what happened last time out for Frank
Yeah,
Sanchez.
yeah.
I think he's honestly an accident waiting to have. I think with him, he could, it's like one of them 50-50s where he could maneuver himself into a world title shot, but I also don't rule out him getting knocked out in a tune-up against like a semi-credible opponent, like
Yeah, yeah,
a,
yeah.
someone like Carlos. Like, if you put him in with Carlos Takam, yeah, I honestly wouldn't feel comfortable as his manager sitting there and watching him go 12 with Carlos Takam because honestly, I just don't think he has the punch resistance. I just don't. And I don't know how old he is as well.
Yeah.
So he needs to be managed very, very carefully. Yeah, I see Frank Sanchez winning that one.
Yeah, so do I.
I don't think we're gonna be able to cover every single fight on the card because I can't even remember every single unless you remember every single
I
fight.
do remember most of the fights, I think. Obviously got Joshua Wallin,
Yeah, those
Parker, Wilder, Dubois, Miller, Bivol, Lyndon Arthur, Jail Pattaya versus Ellis Zorro,
which is
Hergovich versus
uh,
Domori,
yeah,
and obviously Kabayel versus Makhmudov. I think those are all the fights, but
really.
it's that card. Yeah, I think that's all of the fights.
All right. Well, I think Bivol versus Lyndon Arthur. I don't see Lyndon Arthur
At
really
all.
doing much in that.
At all.
Um, I
I
don't.
think I think he's a bit of an overrated fight. I think that yard win um has flattened him. Although first time I was saying that he'll beat Yard on points, but I think that fight has definitely flattered him. Don't rate him in his last fight. I was lucky to get the win. So I do think this is routine for Bivol, but Bivol does have sometimes a tendency to fight to his level's opponents. So we'll see. I think Bivol stops him, but
Yeah.
we'll see.
Um,
I think also
Opp-
Joe Pataya versus Zoro, don't see that being competitive whatsoever. Like
Mhm.
I really want the British fighters to do well, but I've never rated Ellis Zoro, and he went life and death with Det Spellman.
Yeah.
Opetaya's going to destroy him.
Yeah. I think Dex Spellman is like an area level fighter,
Yeah,
maybe,
yeah.
or maybe bordering English level. Styles make fights, but yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I haven't seen that guy before, but from what I hear, it's pretty easy work for Opetaya. And any Bella, because I'm trying to think, is there any other ones that are not happening at heavyweight? Have we covered those? Because
I
I
think
remember
it's
the
just
heavyweight,
those two.
just
Yeah,
those, yeah.
I think it's just those two, to be honest. Yeah,
I think Saudi Arabia, they like the heavyweights, don't they?
yeah, they do. They do. They like the heavyweights. They like the
Uh,
heavyweights.
or I don't know if they like. Maybe it's the fact they know because Saudi Arabia are trying to get that, generate that money because they're losing a lot of money putting these shows on, aren't they? So they're trying to. They know that
I think heavyweights
heavyweights.
bring the most eyes into the sport. Let's be real. Like, yeah, let's be real. The biggest Barcanelo, the biggest stars in boxing are heavyweights. So they bring the most views to the sport. So
Yeah, let's face
yeah,
it. Most people aren't tuning in to watch, two flyweights fight for a world title in a leisure center somewhere in
exactly,
Romania. It's not happening. Um,
exactly that,
it's true.
exactly.
Um, So we haven't covered the main ones, which is good. We'll cover those ones now, I think. So you have just before I do that, so we've covered all the other ones, haven't we?
All the
Is it
other
just
card, yeah, all the other fights. Now
cool?
we've got the two co-mains.
I'm getting older, man. My memory's kind of going a bit. Um, so
You want
we
to start off with
have
Wilder Parker?
yeah, go for it, man.
Yeah.
I'll give the floor to you, man. What's up with that?
I think with this Wilder Parker fight, I actually think the name value of Parker is holding up a lot more than I think it should. If you go off late, I don't think he's the same fighter he was when he was on the come up. I think he's put on too much weight. His best attributes, he's kind of lost them. He has good footwork and it's slowed down now because he's put on weight. He had fast hands. He's still got fast hands, but he's trying to fight out like he's a puncher and he's not a puncher. So I do think styles make fights. Wilder might be a bit rusty for the first two, 3 rounds, but I do see Wilder knocking Parker out clean. Even against that 3 rounds against Simon Keane. I know he knocked out Simon Keane, but Simon Keane was landing here and there. And if he's landing on you, I think Wilder's destined to do it. So I do think it's a respectable fight for a comeback, but I'm saying it might be easy work for Wilder, to be honest with you. I don't really see the threats Parker can offer now. Yeah,
Yeah, man. I think Parker was better under Kevin Barry. I think Parker, when I first watched him, I remember that I was working at Waitrose, and I was like, "You're not allowed your phone on the shop floor," but I had my phone in my pocket. I just went into the storage area and was just watching Parker. Like this is back when I was like in my early 20s. I was like,
yeah,
"Yeah, this guy's quick." I'm just watching it quickly, make sure my manager don't see me. Like, yeah, man, watching these
yeah,
these highlights. Back when he was fine in New Zealand, I was like, "This guy's a problem." I was like, this guy needs to fight Joshua. I mean, this is when Joshua, I think this was maybe just after Joshua fought White.
yeah,
I was like, this guy's a problem, but it's been a bit of a disappointment. I
definitely.
don't think he's fulfilled his potential, and yeah, I don't think he's a come forward fighter. I think he can do it. I think it's in sort of his box of tricks, but I don't think that's his bread and butter.
Yeah,
So against, because if you watch him try and close the gap against Huey Fury, that wasn't effective.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
Literally, that was an example of poor positioning. Didn't really couldn't find a range. That was a horrible fight.
yeah, and I think that it's not his bread and butter coming forward. He actually likes to hang on the back foot and actually just wait for he wants to counter you, and then what he also wants to do is once you're hurt, then he wants to unload on you, but from range and from
Yeah,
distance. He never really like I mean, against Anthony Joshua, you would have thought his best bet was to try and use you sort of cut the ring off and try and apply pressure, but he couldn't do it because that's not his style. So I think that against Wilder, again, he finds himself in a predicament where he needs to come forward. Against Anthony Joshua, I actually believe that it was the back foot would have worked better against Joshua than it's going to work against Wilder. The reason being, Wilder's so wiry. There's no way he's going to be able to stand and box with Wilder, even though
Yeah,
Wilder's not a
100%.
good boxer. Parker's superior skills, but sometimes it doesn't matter if I'm 5'1" and you're 6'2". I can have all the skills. I'm not boxing you at range. So I think it's one of them ones. And I think the height, I think Wilder actually is a bit taller than Joshua. So I think that
Yeah.
also does make it more of a disadvantage for Parker.
I
So
can see
Parker,
Parker being on the ropes, trying to fight off the back foot, left hand down, and just getting cleaned out by a quick Wilder 1-2. I can see it. Wilder tends to switch off in fights as well, and if you do that against Wilder, you will just end up on the floor. So I do like the fight for a comeback with Wilder. He's not fought in over a year, but I think people are gassing up this fight too much just because of name value. I think if you look at it, just the bread and butter of the fight, it's a relatively routine win for Wilder. You would assume.
yeah, I mean, there's only a few components that you would have to consider to sort of sway from that opinion. And those, in my opinion, are the fact that Wilder is 38 years old. Um, how much is his punch resistance being affected by the Fury
Yeah,
losses? And the other thing, on the other side, if you were in Parker's corner, I something tells me that Parker has the skills to have some success in this fight. I don't know what it is. I just have a feeling that Parker will have some success in this fight, because he has, with his skill set and perhaps with his combination punching. I just have a feeling there will be some success for Parker, and I have a feeling that Parker has more of a chance against Wilder than Wallin has against Joshua. I don't know why, but I still feel that Deontay Wilder will ice Joseph Parker out, because Joseph Parker, he's too nice. He hasn't got the will of Wilder. He hasn't got the heart of Wilder, in my
yeah, yeah,
opinion.
yeah.
And I feel that yeah, I just feel that Joseph Parker, lowly left hand as well, that's a real big
Dangerous,
issue.
dangerous,
Um,
dangerous. And he needs to lose weight. I'm gonna say it again, he needs to lose weight. You can't be Parker and be 260 pounds. It makes no sense. And what you said about you think Parker's gonna cause issues, I think if Parker had the heart, I think he would. But honestly, I don't really like doing the speculation or conspiracy theory. But it wouldn't surprise me if Parker took a dive because Team Fury said take a dive.
I mean, I'm going to be real diplomatic and say no comment, because I don't know. You put me on the spot there, man. I'd have to think about that, But listen, I don't rule anything out in boxing, because like fixed fights do happen, drugs do happen, boxing is corrupt. Like I'm not. It's not out of the scale of possibility, but I don't know really what to say on that at this moment in time. I have to think about it. But I think that Joseph Parker, I can see him getting knocked out, and I can see him getting knocked out. I don't think it'll be too early. I think it'll maybe be 3 to 8, 3 to 8, anywhere from three
Okay,
to eight,
yeah,
um,
yeah,
something like that. But again, I think there are some components that could change the whole outlook, and those are how much is age affecting Wilder, and how
yep,
much is the punch resistance affecting Wilder. I think those are components, because you got to think that Joseph Parker, he's not a puncher, but he managed to drop Derek Chisora. Fury never did it in 3 fights.
yeah, yeah,
I do think that Parker is a more prolific puncher than Tyson Fury. But I don't think Parker's got the length to necessarily get the clean shot on Wilder.
exactly.
So yeah, I'm picking Wilder. I think you're picking Wilder. Now,
Yeah, yeah.
Anthony Joshua. Now, what are your thoughts with regards to, because Wallin, for me, he looked confident. I think Anthony Joshua, he looked like he has something to prove here. He wants to hurt Otto Wallin. It looked like he wanted to hurt Otto Wallin, and he looked to me pretty riled up by Jarrell Miller. I don't think that will affect the fight, but I think Anthony Joshua, he looks like he wants to knock out Otto Wallin. Otto Wallin himself, though, I do believe is looking very confident as well. Um, what are your thoughts with regards to that fight, and what do you think is gonna be, basically, how do you think the fight's gonna unfold?
I'm gonna be as unbiased as I can about this fight, but I'm not gonna lie to you. That press conference was interesting yesterday. I did originally think this fight has points all over it, but I actually think I'm going to go Joshua by stoppage. Yesterday I was watching a lot of Wallin's fights. Don't get me wrong, he's a very technical. He's a good boxer. Wallin's a good boxer, decent enough power. He's a big guy, good size, good speed. But I think that is it. I think he's a jack of all trades, master of none. That's what I would say with Wallin. I see this fight, to be honest. I can see it going from 5 to 7, you know. I don't know why, but I think, like you said, I think Josh is looking like he's got a point to prove. I do think, I think he's become a better winner in terms of his style now is more conducive to winning than before. In terms of his boxing skills have got better. I think he's understanding the game a bit better. I have watched Wallin. I watched Wallin versus Brazil. He was good, did his thing. I watched Wallin versus Gassiev yesterday. Did his thing, but with Wallin, I've noticed he does tire down the stretch, to be honest with you. And we need to point out this fight is on 6 weeks' notice. Wallin did look a bit out of shape yesterday. I did see he's got a bit of a belly. I know he's not a Greek god shape, but he did look a bit out of shape. So I'm gonna just put my neck out there and say I think Josh is gonna get the stoppage 5 to 7.
Fair enough, man.
I don't see this fight actually being that competitive, you know.
Yeah.
Honestly.
I mean, I heard back in the days on the grapevine. I mean, you don't have to say anything because I don't. Obviously, he's your cousin. I don't know what you can and can't say. I'll just say from me, what I heard from a source is that Joshua and Wallin sparred, and it got very rough for Wallin out there. So that's what I heard, and obviously that may or may not have an impact on the fight from psychological perspective. I also heard that, or I didn't. That's the only thing I heard. But Joshua, with regards to Wallin, I think that Otto Wallin is steady Eddie, competent in all areas, but not nothing leaps off the page. You don't look at anything Otto Wallin does and think, wow. Now fighters like that can get you on a bad day. If they're good at everything but not amazing at anything, but you're on an off day and they're kind of just like steady eddying you, just kind of there, then yeah, cool. I can see problems being caused. He doesn't have the it factor. Obviously, with Anthony Joshua, you think about his power punching, his combination punching, Wilder straight right hand, even Parker combination punching, Tyson Fury boxing IQ, boxing ability, Alexander Usyk. All these fighters, they have something. Otto Wallin, I don't think he really has anything amazing. So he is there to be beat. I think that, Joshua, I think if he puts in a performance like he did against Usyk the second time around, then I think that he could win that by late KO or points. Now, the worst thing that I can see happening is if Joshua doesn't perform to the absolute best of his ability, I can see him getting a decision that's controversial. I think that Joshua has sort of an insurance, like he sort of has. It's no secret that Saudi Arabia are probably looking to make Joshua versus Wilder. So Otto Wallin, I can see Joshua winning. If you were to ask me who is more likely to win this fight, I think Anthony Joshua. But even if it's close, I still think they'll give it to Joshua. So Otto Wallin, I think, is up against it. I think that Otto Wallin, best bet is to get a knockout because I don't think he can, unless he wins 120, 108 like levels, I don't think he's going to get a decision. And therefore he needs to go for the KO. Does he have the power? Well, I don't think so. I think he can get Joshua's respect, maybe if he catches him right. It's heavyweight boxing, but my money wouldn't be on him scoring a knockout against Anthony Joshua. So I see Joshua winning that fight, late KO or points. But because of what I've heard on the grapevine, I wouldn't be surprised if he even got it maybe mid rounds. I think the southpaw element of the fight may extend the fight. So even if you're saying like early KO, I think because of the southpaw element where they're battling for lead hand control, I
Yeah,
think that may prolong any KO that could happen early.
I agree with you in
Um,
that. I think round 1, 2, and 3 might be a bit tricky. I think that's going to be a low output round. I don't think a lot will be happening just because of the southpaw element. But Wallin's actually taller than I thought he was, to be honest with you. He's actually taller than I thought he was. So I actually think that's a better thing. I think like you say, like you box, I sometimes box. Punching down is horrible. I think punching at eye level, I think is a lot easier. So it'll be interesting to see in that fight how that affects both fighters. So I'm definitely looking forward to that fight. Like I say, I'm not gonna try and be biased, but I genuinely believe that I think this fight is easier for Joshua than people think. I think it's a case of people not rating Joshua and people overrating Wallin. I think if you actually look at Wallin's performance against Fury, Fury he dominated the fight, to be honest. I think he won like 9 rounds. Like, I think he won the fight relatively easily. Against Brazil, I wasn't really impressed with Wallin's performance. I think Brazil kind of came back late in the fight, and that's Dominic Brazil we're talking about. He's probably as slow as Joe Joyce. I think against Kamil Sokolowski, Otto Wallin looked terrible. I know he was out of shape, but this is a fight that's been made on 6 weeks' notice. So yeah, and even against Gassiev, like I thought Gassiev would win. I put my hands up. I thought Gassiev would win, but he weighed 98 kilos in that fight. Wallin did tire down the stretch, and I just think all roads lead to a Joshua stoppage. So I'm gonna say a Joshua stoppage round 5 to round 7.
Yeah, honestly, I think Joshua will probably win that fight. And yeah, I think with regards to the press conference, yeah, very, very interesting. I think that it was interesting to see Joshua Wilder interact. Wilder was a lot calmer than I thought he would be potentially. But I think Wilder's kind of it's interesting because I feel like maybe in life you're always put in where you're always put where you're meant to be, whether you realize it at the time. So Wilder was put, he achieved heavyweight champion status. And if you watch his interviews before that, he was very chilled and very humble. And then he became champion and he started to talk about all these things and start to be very I don't want to say self-righteous, but you probably the energy he was projecting, you know what I mean? And then he lost to
Yeah,
Fury those times, and now he's kind of gone back to being a bit humble and a bit chilled. So I feel like with Wilder, he kind of has maybe been humbled by Fury. And I think that may have I think that definitely had an impact on his behavior at the press conference, because I think if that press conference with Anthony Joshua and Wilder happened in 2018, Wilder would have been shouting bomb squad and would have been saying this and saying that. So I think that may have had an impact on it. Anthony Joshua didn't really look like he was too interested in engaging with Deontay Wilder too much. I think that Joshua's not really a trash talk. I know he talks to Miller, but I think that Miller, when you're talking about someone's family, most people are not just going to sit there and say nothing.
yeah,
So I think that Joshua's not really a trash talker. Wilder, his new energy isn't really a trash talker. So that's
yeah,
kind of why the situation unfolded, which it did. But if you actually look, when Joshua and Wilder started interacting, everyone turned their head. All the boxers and Frank Warren and Eddie Hearn were looking to see what was going to happen. So that was pretty interesting. But I think these two, I think those two being in the same room and just the energy, I think that kind of highlighted how big a fight it would be. And I think that fight is definitely a fight that captures the imagination of myself and many, many other people, to the point where that could be a more interesting fight or a more appealing fight than Usyk versus Fury, in my opinion.
yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
I agree. I think numbers don't lie. I think if Joshua and Wilder fought and Fury and Usyk fought in the same night, I think more people would watch Joshua Wilder 100%. It's a more intriguing fight. You've got two 6'7", 6'6" punchers. I think it's more, yeah, it's guaranteed more fight, to be honest with you. Fury Usyk Dev has more of a chance going to points, but Wilder and Joshua, that's definitely got more of a chance to go in by knockout. In terms of the press conference, I'll just quickly go over my thoughts. I do think I thought there'd be more beef between Miller and Wilder, to be honest with you, just because they have been trash
Yeah.
talking. I thought there'd be more beef between them two, but obviously Miller went on his little tyrant. But yeah, it was interesting. Like I say, I think looking at the boxers' heights, Joshua and Wilder, I did think Wilder would be a bit taller. I'm not seeing the footwear, but I did think Wilder might be. I thought Wilder would be taller than he is. He's a really slim guy. I didn't realize how slim he was. He's a really lean, slim guy.
He looked tiny next to Joshua,
Yeah,
innit?
yeah, he's a really slim guy. But like I say, obviously whatever power he has is working. But yeah, that's what can I say about the press conference? Interesting. Wilder did seem subdued. I think the Fury fight really did humble him. And yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to the next press conference. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this card, to be honest with you.
Yeah, me too, man. Me too. If there's anything else, if not, I've pretty much said everything I've got to say. So, is there
Yeah,
anything
same
you
with
want?
me. Same with me. Obviously, guys, we're gonna do a full prediction and breakdown when the fight comes closer after the weigh-in. I want to see what it's like when I see the weights. That's when I'll make my full prediction for these fights. But yeah, I think that's everything for me.
Yeah, man. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, hit the notification bell so you get a notification when we make new videos. And with that, enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll see you on the next one.